Greetings in the name of Yahuwah and His beloved Son Yahushua HaMashiach. Welcome to today's lesson. Today's lesson will be on the topic, be careful of who you have conversation with. Be careful of who you have conversation with. In doing so, one will be fulfilling what is written in the book of Mishle, commonly known as Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23, which says, guard the heart with all due diligence. Why must one be on guard to such level with all due diligence? It further says, for out of it are the sources of life. So this is what we need to understand. See, our daily lives are based on or associated with decision making. And such decisions are made up in the mind, of which the book of Mishle is referring to as the heart. So this is symbolic because the heart provides life in human being. If it happens that the heart stops, then there's no more pumping of blood, hence death. So all the decisions that we make, they are made in one's mind. Such decisions are based on the ideas and thoughts that gets developed in one's mind. And there are three great influencers of the mind which lead to development and generation of thoughts or ideas. These great influencers are what we read, what we watch, and what we listen to. See how easily we get influenced. If a celebrity has got a hairstyle, then the next thing, all of a sudden, everybody wants to have it, based on what we have seen on TV. So the book teaches us that the light of the body is the eye. If the eye is in darkness, then the whole body is in darkness. So hence we're saying we need to be careful of who we have conversation with. It's either in the matter or as a matter of watching, because that has got a greater influence on one's mind. That develop thoughts and ideas which we tend to execute. Because when the mind has an idea, or when an idea is developed in the mind, then that prompts or produces an action. Hence the scripture teaches us that we need to guard our heart with all due diligence. Because whatever that we expose our heart or our mind to, that becomes what we do as human beings. We easily get influenced. As I've mentioned, if a celebrity has got a hairstyle, everybody wants to do it. Look at how people dress today as a result of the influencers. What we watch on TV. Every day we get glued on TV. Whatever that we see, we want to put into action. Such aspects brings us into what we call spiritual blindness. We end up living celebrity or other people's lives as opposed to living our own, which is basically the life that the Most High wants us to live so that we can please Him, because all is about pleasing Him. You see, mankind's mind is like a womb. In the womb, there is something that gets conceived. And for such a thing that has been conceived to grow, requires a feed. So hence women are advised to eat healthy so that that which has been conceived in the womb grows and becomes healthy. So if we feed our mind garbage, then it means that even our decision making will also be as a result of that. Garbage in, garbage out. So hence we're saying we really need to be careful of who we have conversation with. We need to be careful of what we expose ourselves to, because that brings in ideas. Those are great influencers. And then we end up making decisions on what we are exposed to. So we learn in the book of Kohelet, also known as Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, verse 29. I'll just quickly read it. It reads, indeed, this only I have found, that Elohim, the Most High, made men straight, but they sought many devices. So what we're learning here is that when the Most High created man, he had equipped man with everything that he required for him to rule over the creation of the Most High. Because that's what the book teaches us. When we read Psalms, Tehillim, chapter 8, it teaches us that the Most High created man to rule over his creation. And there was questions there to say, what is man that you always visit? Man that you always remember. You have made him a little bit like Elohim, and you have made him to rule over your creation. So that's the basis of the creation from the Most High. So the Most High created man and equipped him with all the knowledge that he required to rule over his creation. But now, what Solomon is saying, or what Shlomo is saying, man sought many devices. Though he was created straight, without any fault, but they sought many devices. So now we need to ask ourselves, where did the desire to sort or to seek more devices comes from? Where does that come from? Hence we say, be careful of who you have conversation with. So now, I want us to draw our attention to the book of Bereshit, which is Genesis chapter 3, so that we can get an understanding where or how or what went wrong after the creation. How did man start seeking for more devices? Which is opposite of what the Most High had said when he created man. Let's go to Genesis chapter 3 from verse 1. It reads, "And the serpent was more crafty than all the lives of the field, which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, Is it true that Elohim has said, Do not eat of every tree of the garden?" So here we start to get conversation happening between the serpent and the woman. So the scripture teaches us that the serpent was more crafty than all the lives that the Most High had created. So now we have got people who have been entrusted with knowledge. We have got people who have been given understanding. But the question is, to whose benefit are they using such knowledge? Because we see now that the serpent was more crafty, but such skills, such knowledge, he didn't use it to benefit the Most High, but rather to go astray or to go against the command of the Most High. So the serpent was operating under the influence of the adversary, he who was cast out of heaven because of pride, because he wanted to be praised, he wanted to compete with the Most High. So now he came and influenced the serpent to come have conversation with the woman. So this is where the problem is starting. Hence the topic of the day says, be careful of who you have conversation with. So now, the serpent came to a woman and said, Is it true that the Most High said you must not eat any tree in the garden? So, what we learn in life is that questions are normally asked to get two things from us as human beings. It's either one is trying us or one wants to get knowledge. So we need to be at the level where we have an understanding of whether such a question is for trying one's understanding or it's a matter of trying to get knowledge. So now in this case, we can say the woman was supposed to ask, what is it that you know? Because the way in which the serpent is addressing the woman, we can see that there is something that he knows, but he just wants to try the woman. So let's see, or let's get how the conversation unfolds. So now the woman responds. And the woman said to the serpent, We are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim the Most High has said, Do not eat, nor touch, lest you die. So now we get an understanding that there is a command which the Most High gave to Adama, which he now gave to Eve, his wife. That the Most High said, out of all the trees in the garden we can eat, but we are not allowed to eat of the tree in the midst of the garden. And then there was also a punishment to say, should it happen that you eat of that tree, you're going to die. So that's the command that the Most High has given. Meaning, transgressing that command brings death. Hence the book teaches us that the wages of sin, it's death. The wages of sin is death. And it is still like that even today. Hence we require that washing from the Most High. We require that washing from the Messiah, that we can be clean before Him. Blessed are those whom the Most High does not count any transgression against. So now, let's hear what the serpent says. So this is another mistake that the woman has done. Because the serpent came and started a conversation and the woman gave an ear. So you must remember, the conversation, whether good or bad, there is an influence that comes out of that conversation. And that influence affects our decision making. And decisions that we make determines our lives. We need to guard our heart with all due diligence. Let's hear now what the serpent says to the woman. Now we read verse 4. It says, and the serpent said to the woman, you shall certainly not die. For Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like the Most High, knowing good and evil. So now, what we get to hear from this passage is that there's two things that the serpent has mentioned. One, he said, you shall certainly not die. But the question that we need to ask ourselves, is that true? No, it's not true. Because the command that was given to the woman or to Adama is that the day that you eat out of that tree, then you will certainly die. So that's a lie that the devil brought to the woman. And then the second part, he said, Elohim knows, or the Most High knows, that the day that you eat of that tree, your eyes will be opened. Was he lying? No, that was the truth. So what we see is that the devil, the adversary, he is crafty. He comes with the truth and lies. And then that's how he robs our mind and we end up transgressing. The first part that he mentioned to say you shall certainly not die, it's not true. But the second part that he mentioned that the Most High knows that the day that you eat out of it, your eyes will be open. That was true. So let's hear how the conversation unfolded. Because we need to get an understanding. Hence we say the influence, the power of mind is very dangerous. We need to protect our mind with all due diligence. We need to make sure that we are careful with who we have conversation with. We need to be careful of who we give an ear to. We need to be careful of what we expose our eyes to. We need to be careful of what we read. Verse 6 says, and the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise. And she took of it its fruits and ate. So here is where the problem comes. Things that she had no idea about. Things that she never thought of it or thought about. Now has been turned upside down. The tree that she was not even looking at, the tree that she never even focused on. Now because of the conversation, because of what she has heard from the adversary, now the book says she saw that it was now good for food. But was it like that before? No. How is it like that now? Because of the conversation, because of what she has heard. Now it says the tree was now desirable to make one wise. Why? Because the devil said so. So from that conversation, she ended up taking that tree because she thought it is now good for one to eat. It is desirable to make one wise. But it was never like that from the beginning. So we're basically seeing that the conversation that the woman had with the serpent brought in a certain desire. She started seeking for more devices. She wanted to be smart. She wanted to have that knowledge, which the Most High had evaluated and saw that it's not important for mankind. But that conversation brought in a desire to the woman. And then she started acting otherwise. She forgot the command that the Most High had given. Though she was equipped, she wanted now to satisfy the desire that came up from the conversation that she had with the serpent. Now let's see what unfolds. The scripture says, now she took off that tree, she ate, and then after eating, she also gave to the husband. Now what happened to the husband? Because he's the one that received the command from the Most High. Why is he now eating? So, women has always been man's weakest point. So we also need to be careful as well. We need our ears to be circumcised so that we can have an understanding whether the conversation is bringing in distraction or it's bringing positive things that will enable us to serve the Most High. An ear must be circumcised. Eyes must be circumcised. And our mouth must be circumcised. So that whatever that we utter is what gives praise to the Most High. Whatever we listen to, it's what is going to it's what is going to build us, that we can do what is desirable before the eyes of the Father. So the conversation that happened again brought in blindness to the woman. What was not important to her became important because the lust had to be satisfied. So it is whatever that is happening today, what we read, what we watch, and what we listen to, all that are bringing what we call spiritual blindness. Then we don't see what is important before the Most High, but only that which satisfies the lust of flesh. Hence the book teaches us that, come out of her, my people. Because this system that has been developed in this world brings us to a spirit of deep sleep. TV, video games, all this type of music that doesn't bring any praise to the Most High, all that brings us into spiritual blindness. And then from that, we end up weighing the Most High based on that knowledge that we have accumulated from what we have been exposed to. The Most High is almighty. There is nothing that is impossible to Him. People who could not conceive, they conceived because people depended on the Most High. Even Sarah, the one who was already past the age of women, but she did give birth. The book teaches us that when we read the book of Yahushua or the book of Joshua, chapter 1 from verse 8, it teaches us that the book of the law shall not depart from thy mouth. You must meditate it day and night. Why? So that it can be the one that is ringing in our brains. The same way music does. When we listen to music, it keeps on ringing in our brain. So imagine if it's destructive music. Imagine if it's this music that only teaches people about drug dealing, that teaches people about being naked, that teaches people about warring. Where are we going as a nation? Be careful of who you have conversation with. So now let's proceed down to verse 7. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, And they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loins covering for themselves. So immediately they ate of that tree. Their eyes became open. So this is the truth that the devil said, or the serpent said to them, that the day that you eat of the tree, your eyes will be open. So now they realize that they are naked. Why did they realize that they are naked? When we read from the same book, in chapter 2, verse 25, it reads, "And they were both naked, the man and his wife, yet they were not ashamed." So now shame came in because the esteem of the Most High had departed from them. So immediately they transgressed the command of the Most High. They realized that they are naked because what used to provide covering had now departed from them. Hence, we living in this condition, or hence the Messiah had to be sent into this world, so that that which we have lost as mankind from the beginning, the shame that we have suffered, can now be removed. And then now we be clothed by the esteem of the Most High, which is the set apart Spirit, by believing in His only begotten Son, the Messiah. Then we have that set apart Spirit making a dwelling in us, and we get clothed. So, for the purpose of the lesson of today, we will not proceed to go down to verse 8, where we started, or where the scriptures start discussing the issue of punishment and all that. That will be another sermon on its own. But what we wanted to discuss, or what we wanted us to get an understanding on, is that whatever conversation that we have, whether good or bad, there is influence that comes out of it. And such influence comes in form of ideas and thoughts, which gets developed in our mind, the center of excellence. And whatever that comes, or whatever that gets developed in our mind, produces an action. There's nothing that we do without thinking. That's where the difficulty comes in. So we need to guard ourselves. We need to guard our minds. We need to make sure that we don't expose ourselves to things that will end up making us go astray. How many things are being taught by the devil that we are doing today as mankind? But we say we believe, but most of the things that we do are opposite from what the Most High has instructed. So all these things are coming from the conversation, from who we give our ears to. So there is mind games that is being played here. We have been taught that there's nothing that we can do without an intervention from the opposite side. But the Most High said, if you humble yourself and come to me, there's nothing that we're going to run short of. Hence David says, the Most High is my shepherd, I shall not want. So when we are in Him, there's nothing that we need, there's nothing that we require. For He knows what is good, He knows what we require or what we desire. And He knows what is important for us to live in this world. Hence He says, seek the kingdom of the Most High and His righteousness, and all those things shall be added. But we have got a problem that we require the addition before we seek the Most High. So let's be careful of who we have conversation with. Let's protect our minds from the adversary. For he's going to lead us astray, and the end result will be death. Be careful of who you have conversation with. I just want us to go through the last scripture before we close today's sermon, which will be in the book of 1 Kings, chapter 13. This will be a setting or giving confirmation to the issue that we're talking about of being careful of who we have conversation with. So in this book, I will just explain. So it's 1 Kings chapter 13 from verse 1. So this is following the fall or the division that came to the house of Israel after Solomon sinned before the eyes of the Most High. So the house of Israel was divided into two, the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel, which went to Shomeron or Samaria, and then the house of Judah with the house of Benjamin remained in Jerusalem. So what happened was that Jeroboam was now reigning in Shomeron. He was now the king. So he didn't want people to go back to the son of Solomon or the son of Solomon, because he was afraid that those people will go back to Jerusalem and never come back to Shomeron. So what he did was that he erected altars there in Dan and also in Bethel. So there was a man of the Most High who was sent there to prophesy against the slaughter place that has been erected. So the scripture teaches us that the Most High gave him straight, clear instruction to go do the work that he has given him and come back. He told him that he must not even eat the bread of that land, nor even drink water. So the man, after doing all the work that the Most High told him to do, the sovereign told him that, let's go to refresh. But he said, that's not what he has been instructed. He's only here to do the work, and then he leaves. And then there was another man who was a prophet. He told his sons to saddle a donkey for him so that he can go after him. When he found that man, he convinced him to go back with him and eat. But the instruction from the Most High had said, you must not. So the problem was that he gave that guy an ear. He listened to him. That guy convinced him, I'm also the prophet of the Most High. And let's go. So he ended up being convinced because of the conversation that he had. But should he had sticked to what the Most High had said, you must only go and do what I've instructed you, and then that's it. So he ended up going back and transgressed the command of the Most High. Why? Because of the conversation that he had with another guy who said he's a prophet. So conversations are very dangerous. There's a serious influence in the conversations that we have. So he ended up being killed by the lion, and it didn't even eat him because of transgressing the command of the Most High out of the conversation. So we really need to be careful of who we have conversation with. For if we are not careful, then we'll end up living other people's lives. We'll end up doing what the instruction of the adversary, who wants the kingdom of the Most High to fall, and then only his must rise. The book teaches us that he's only here to steal, slaughter, and kill. So let's not entertain nasty conversations. Let's not entertain the conversations that leads us astray. Let's not entertain conversation that makes us seek more devices. Look at what is happening in this world. Fourth Industrial Revolution this, Fourth Industrial Revolution that. We as people think we're smart, but we are not. There is an influence that is coming from somewhere. Artificial womb that has to be developed. Artificial that. Where is it coming from? When we read the book of Yasha, we also get that information that the first world was ended because of such corruption. Because people had corrupted animals. People had corrupted plants, which is what we have got today. The GMOs, we have got dogs that we believe that were not even there in creation. A dog that has got characteristics of a lion. Where are we going as men? So we're seeking more devices every day under the influence of the adversary. Because all these things at the end of the day, they are going to kill us. May the Most High be with us in closure of this sermon. so that we can go back and reflect, go back and seek from the Most High, so that He can give us direction and we live according to what He has instructed. And such instruction leads us unto everlasting life, which is the base of this belief. With that being said, I say, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom.